or should I say ho, 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 and welcome to the BullCast podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me today is my two other Clauses, Court Winsett.
I am not a Santa Claus.
You would be an elf, an angry elf. And Cameron Spann, the perky elf.
Oh, thrice.
He's an angry elf. Call me an elf one more time.
Okay, so we are in 'tis the season, we're in December and we want to get some spirit alive. We've already started decorating the office. We've got trees everywhere. So we kind of want to do
polar bears everywhere too.
Polar
bears all over the place.
The polar bears are actually having a meeting in our production room and they're all like together congregated.
Yeah.
We also have a Grinch tree.
Yes.
A Christmas tree dedicated to the Grinch.
It's fabulous.
Indeed.
It's wonderful. Okay, so this episode we're going to talk about a very exciting topic, one that a lot of people think about, but I do want to say, Mom, Dad, if you're listening and you got little ones around, we may be revealing some Christmas secrets, so you might want to ask them to step out of the room, or you may want to listen to this later on. Okay, scurry on, little kids. I see you hiding in the corner. Do not be listening. These are Christmas secrets.
Katie has her eye on you.
We're watching. Don't get on the naughty
Stop trying to
list.
scare the kids, guys.
Don't get put on the naughty list. So it's just us, guys. So the business of being Santa. Kind of want to talk about that. Obviously, we talked about over the years, how each family handles being Santa and the logistics behind that in your personal family. But this is kind of a fun one talking about the overall business production of Santa Claus itself. So have you ever thought about what it would cost to keep Santa's operation running? Well, we're going to break down the economics of Christmas because, of course, we're a financial podcast. Y'all excited?
I am. I'm just thinking about the nightmare it would be to be Santa. Just the amount of children. I know we're going to talk about it, but the amount of children in the world and all the gifts are
Time changes.
custom.
Yeah.
Not every child celebrates Christmas, so that does cut it. That cuts the number of children pretty significantly. And
some parents are nice and say Santa can come a couple of days later, things like that. So
But it's a tough job. One night a year, it's a tough job. Then probably for a few months, it's basically just a management job where you're managing the elves. And then he actually gets a pretty extended, depending
big break.
Yeah, he gets a pretty extended break after he finishes on Christmas. He takes a few months off, I think.
Well, and let's just, I know we've talked about this before. Santa is the face. Santa does a lot of work, but Santa could not do what he does if it was not for his incredible team.
Yes.
He has an incredible team of reindeer, of elves, and Mrs. Claus.
Yeah. Mrs. Claus has always been a very supportive wife.
She's very supportive. She does a lot. She, makes sure things are done. When he eats too many cookies last minute, she has to fix his suit real quick before he goes out there. So, Santa, yes, is doing a lot, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes, which kind of echoes a lot of businesses out there.
Yeah.
A lot of figureheads get all the credit for what they're doing.
Steve Jobs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, it's not just them.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people behind the scenes doing stuff.
I'm also just sitting here overwhelmed. Where did the year go?
Oh, yeah.
How is it Christmas
I have
time?
no idea.
Oh
I feel like we were just doing our New Year's resolution.
I've got things that I was going to follow up on that I have on my to-do list from February.
Oh,
It's November.
It's almost February.
Oh, my God.
yeah, you're almost there. You meant to do it over a year, right?
Yeah. Well,
Okay, so we're going to do a fun little list. This is the best movie Santa Clauses out there.
the first one on the list is Tim Allen from the Santa Claus trilogy and also the Netflix series.
TV show, yeah.
He's one of my favorites.
Mine too.
I love him.
He is Santa Claus to me in pop culture.
Yeah, I agree. And I do have to note that for once, gosh, this is shocking. For once, Court is not the one in the studio with the Diet Coke. And if you know Court always has Diet Cokes with him. But Cam and I are in here with our Diet Cokes rocking the Santa Diet Cokes, which I swear taste better.
Yeah, and
This
I will
episode's
say,
sponsored by Coca-Cola.
yeah, honestly, if there is an image of Santa Claus that is the quintessential image of Santa Claus for me, it's the
Coca-Cola Santa.
Claus.
I mean, it's
The
just
jolly elf Santa Claus.
and that's what Santa has been portrayed by so many different images, but it's always been the kind of heavier set, older, white beard, long white beard, white hair.
Have you seen the new? I saw it twice this morning. It's the first time I've ever seen it. There's a new Target ad that has Hot Santa in it.
It's a hot Santa. Yeah, he's like a lumberjack guy, and he has his. You think it's his suit, and then he's like got his little Target name badge on. I'm like, okay.
Stupid question. Is the Coca-Cola Santa Norman Rockwell? Is that a Norman Rockwell painting? He gives off the vibes. I'm going to look this up.
It looks very similar, and they could have the rights to it. While you look that up, let's. So we obviously talked about Tim Allen. Incredible.
Well, I do want to say, let me just side note it real quick. Tim Allen's not Julie Bowen. Juliet something or other that plays Mrs. Claus. She's my favorite Mrs. Claus.
What'd you find?
Her name isn't Juliet. That's who she played in Lost. Anyway.
In 1931, Coca-Cola commissioned illustrator Hadan Sundblom. So not Norman Rockwell.
Oh, well, it looks...
Same vibes, though.
Yeah. They wanted him to be a warm, happy character with human features, including rosy cheeks, a white beard, twinkling eyes, and laughter lines. See, there are laughter lines on a guy, but on a female, they're...
Crow's feet.
Yeah, exactly. They're like wrinkles. That's such... Ugh. Okay, this is not an episode about men versus women. Let's go to the next Santa.
Yeah.
Edmund Gwynn, 1947, and Richard Attenborough, 1994, Miracle on 34th Street.
I love both of them.
Yes.
I'm a fan of both of those.
That's
Santas.
another iconic Santa.
Yeah, 100%.
Next on the list would be Ed Asner from Elf.
Yes.
I hate this movie.
Same.
Unpopular opinion, but
I feel like people are gonna
don't hate
thumbs
us
down our podcast for this, but yeah, I'm on board with that.
So we all agree here.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan.
I mean, we own it. My family likes it. I never got behind it. I saw it in theaters when I was young, and I just didn't feel it then. I don't feel it now.
Will Ferrell has a very specific kind of comedy that he does, and
I'm a Will Ferrell fan, but this one just didn't do it for me. But I guess I have different images of what I want my go-to Christmas movie to be.
Yeah. I will say I like the scene where he starts singing with Zooey Deschanel. She's singing and he starts singing along and kind of surprises her.
Yeah.
She's so quirky.
Yes.
Okay, next on the list, I have no idea because I haven't seen this movie, but it's Paul Giamatti in Fred Claus.
You probably haven't seen this because it has Vince Vaughn in it. Don't you not like Vince Vaughn?
He's another one of those guys that has a shtick that I just kind of, it rubs me the wrong way. So.
Fred is Vince Vaughn, and he's brothers with Santa Claus, which is
Paul Giamatti. There you go.
I mean, it was fine.
It was fine.
Speak your mind. What do you want to say?
Again, I was joking with a client the other day because 'tis the Hallmark season and it's like Christmas at the office, Christmas at the dentist, Christmas at the cottage, Christmas at the hotel. Like there's so many movies and it's all like the same cast and it's all similar storylines.
Yeah. It always starts with some crazy busy woman from New York who's going out to the country for some reason and accidentally gets stuck there.
Yes.
She comes home for the holidays and there's a hunk who's a lumberjack and they connect.
And I mean, that's everybody has their movies
or
that
somebody that's trying to run an inn but is struggling
and some of them are really good feel good. So I'm not knocking that because I know my mom's a big fan. I know we've got a lot of clients that are fans of it. And trust me, there's a couple that I like that I'll watch, but you can get sucked into it. And when you said Home for the Holidays, the JTT movie, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, where he's trying to get home for the holidays.
Jessica Biel's in that, isn't she? Yeah.
It's so bad, but like I watched it last year and I was like, this is just such a fun little movie because it's just this kid trying to get home and he's like thinking he's having this hot date with Jessica Biel and gonna go take her to an island. And she's like, I just want to be at home for Christmas. I want my traditions. I don't want to be on a beach with you. That's
Burn.
All right, next on the list.
Talking about the hotter Santa.
It's you.
Yeah, Kurt Russell. So this was a big deal. Obviously, he's an older version than the Target guy, but this was the Christmas Chronicles were great.
Yeah,
I thought they were a fun little movie. Goldie Hawn as Mrs. Claus.
Yeah,
which
he played it. He played basically what people have started raising their eyebrow about is in pop culture we're seeing a lot more depictions of Santa Claus as a thinner guy.
Yes,
and Kurt Russell played him thinner, and I think people were kind of like, huh? He can be thin? And
yeah, it was a big shock. Like, what do you mean he can be thin?
Yeah.
But then there's been all these movies where it's like all the different versions of Santa and seeing the different versions of that. But that was a good one and a newer one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just came, the first one came out, I think, 2 Christmases ago. And then they had a sequel that came out last Christmas. And
yeah. Next on the list is one I haven't seen, but I remember it released when Disney Plus first launched. It kind of released almost side by side. That would be Noelle, played by Anna Kendrick.
It's cute.
It released the Christmas that we had during 2020. It was that season where, because I very specifically remember coming home early and going to get takeout because you still couldn't eat in restaurants and sitting at home with my kids eating pizza and watching this movie.
Yeah. And I mean, like the older movies, the classic movies where it was about Santa. There was not a lot of representation about Mrs. Claus or Santa having siblings or children or anything like that. And so these newer movies are bringing out elves or other children.
They're filling in Santa's history, his backstory, if you will. Next on the list is actually, I watched this last Christmas, and it's David Harbour in Violent Night.
Was it good?
Man.
It is so good. It's not a movie that you watch with your kids.
Nope.
Depending on what sort of stomach you have for violence, you may not enjoy it either, because it is highly violent, almost comically so. It's one of those sort of where the violence gets so out of hand that you can't help but laugh.
Well, how did you do that with a candy cane?
Yeah. And so, but it's a great movie. David Harbour basically plays a Santa who's tired. The magic's gone and he's basically out of magic.
He's thrust in a situation where he's having to try and protect, and it's really cool. It's like G.I. Joe meets Santa.
Yeah. Violently,
yeah.
Side note, speaking of David Harbour, Abby and I just rewatched the last season of Stranger Things, and it is so
good.
That is good television.
Yeah.
I forgot the last episode of that season, the final episode, is like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the last season.
Oh, it's so good.
So good.
I need to do it. Billy Bob Thornton in Bad Santa.
Of course.
He plays Billy Bob Thornton dressed up as Santa.
Run down drunk.
Like it is the Santa that you never want to see at the mall.
The side note to this is I'm pretty sure Laura Gilmore.
Lauren Graham's in it.
Graham.
She plays the girlfriend with Santa.
Next on the list is Ed Ivory, who played Santa in The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
I do not like that movie.
It's not really a Christmas movie.
That's the big debate. Is it Halloween? Is it Christmas?
Yeah.
The reason why I think it became really big, well, it's become big because for forever, like Disney didn't have a lot of kind of Christmas movie, Halloween movies, but the stop animation is what made it so big, is the way it was actually filmed. And so, I'm hit or miss on it.
Yeah. But just as a movie, it's not very enjoyable for me.
I would much rather, if I'm going to watch it, I would watch it in Halloween time period than I would in Christmas.
Yeah.
And then finally, rounding out the list at number J is Tom Hanks in Polar Express. Now, I remember Tom Hanks played basically all of the parts.
The conductor, the hobo, Santa.
Honestly, going back in my head, it's been a minute since I watched this movie, but I can't remember Santa Claus even being in the movie, much less him.
The grand finale, he's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I have no memory of it, but he's on the list. There you go. Boom. That's our list.
Okay, did you know Santa delivers gifts to an estimated 2.2 billion children worldwide?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I had to look this up because in the opening you said not everyone celebrates Christmas, and I was like, that's so true. So let me read you this little tidbit, which is really interesting.
Okay.
There are over 526 million Christian children under the age of 14 who celebrate Christmas on December 25th. In the United States, 93% of the population celebrates Christmas, which is near universal acceptance across all genders, ages, incomes, and educational levels. Yeah, so there you go. So 526 million kids.
Yeah. Do y'all remember, and I know we've talked about this probably on other episodes. I vividly remember as a kid learning about the different Christmas cultures. And like one of the things we did one year in elementary school was like put our shoes outside.
Yeah, I do recall that.
And because that's...
I want to say it's Dutch
culture.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was really cool hearing how everybody does different things. And obviously we've talked about how Santa sometimes wraps gifts. Santa sometimes doesn't wrap gifts. And the debate we've talked about with parents and how what items do you have Santa give and what items do you have parents give? Because it's like, do you really want Santa to take credit for that iPad? Or do you want that to be from mom and dad and Santa gets credit for Barbie Dream House?
Train.
Yeah, the wooden train, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, because all you ever see elves building, I don't know if you've ever visited the North Pole, but all you ever see elves building when you go up to the North Pole is a bunch of wooden toys. They're not real skilled at electronics. So
I've never seen electronics. I've seen them painting dolls and doing things like that. But
and in the movie Elf, I remember them doing Etch-a-Sketches. They were packaging those.
And I feel like even as an adult, like if Santa brings me like Pretty Princess, like some like throwback something, like yo-yos.
They can work plastic, they can do metal, so they could probably make a bike, stuff like that. But like the real high-tech stuff, I don't think Santa's workshop is equipped for that.
Yeah.
They outsource it to India.
So let's talk about that. So if he delivers to each household with at least one child, average 2.3 children per family. Okay, y'all think about it. Are you the 0.3 of your family? Santa must visit approximately 865 million homes in one night. Now, the other challenge is when you're believing in the magic or not. So how many kids are still believing? And it's just, how do you address that? Because is Santa going to come visit you if you're not a believer?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let me read another snippet from this article from The Atlantic. This is interesting. This is talking about that 526 million figure, not the billions figure.
Right.
Santa has to deliver presents to almost 22 million kids an hour, every hour on the night before Christmas. That's about 365,000 kids a minute, about 6,100 kids a second. He's magical, y'all.
Very efficient.
I think there is definitely some time warp going on here. You know, he is able to slow time in such a way that he is able to.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, think about it. If, you remember on Christmas morning, like just how slowly time goes as you're waiting for mom and dad to wake up or whatever your protocol is of before you can go downstairs or go into the living room wherever Santa's delivered gifts. Like time moves so slow as a kid. You're like, oh, is it ever going to be time? I'm ready for Christmas.
Right.
Ready to open presents.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about North Pole economy.
Okay.
Labor force, the elves.
Yeah.
So that's your workers. Okay. Santa parallels a medium-sized toy company. Medium, really?
Parallels a medium-sized toy company, sure. I mean, given the number of kids he's servicing, yeah. I mean, that's a...
I would think he'd be a large-sized toy company.
How many toys a year does Hasbro make or Mattel?
I'm going to look that up.
I guess you think about it, he's just delivering for one day. Hasbro, things like that, are doing toys all year long.
Year round,
okay,
yeah.
So I'll go with that. I won't argue that point. So assuming there's 50,000 elves, the average annual salary for a manufacturer worker is $38,000 in the U.S., making elf labor equivalent to $1.9 billion annually if they were paid.
Right.
So here's the thing. Are the elves paid, or is it one of those that's a trade? They get room and board, they're living there, and they're working all year round.
It's indentured servitude.
I think it's far more of a, we'll give you your room and board, we'll give you a box of candy canes once a week.
Mrs. Claus will have cookies.
You can have all the hot cocoa you want, but that's pretty much it. I don't think they're getting paid. They may get paid in happiness. I don't know.
Well, and again,
it's just hard to quantify.
They're probably getting a nice break as well. Because when Santa's taking a break, they're doing maintenance. They're kind of doing some planning on what's going to be the next hot toys.
Oh, yeah.
But
there's got to be somebody up there that is day after Christmas probably is like, okay, guys, we got to...
What worked well, what didn't? Let's keep on moving forward.
What tweaks can we make to our manufacturing line? What product are we really going to be pushing this year? What do we think is going to be the hot
And they're probably
thing?
trying to pre-make stuff and go ahead. But again, it's the challenge we were kind of joking with before we started this episode. It's not like you can say every kid's getting a red truck.
Right.
Like it's got to be individualized and what they asked for.
Well, yeah, especially because he gets so many requests for presents from kids all over the world. Just
like you can probably
walking up to him and going like, "Hey, Santa, I want to help."
I mean, you can probably do a lot of puppy dog stuffed animals, lots of fire trucks, lots of Barbie dolls or baby dolls, things like that, like carriages. Like those are big things. Wooden trucks and toys and trains and all of that.
So I can't find how many toys Hasbro sold, but it says Hasbro's annual revenue for 2023 was $5.003 billion, and their portfolio includes over 1,800 brands, including G.I. Joe, Monopoly, Ouija boards, and Twister. So I'm sure they sling.
They probably, I'm not going to argue with that again. I went back on it because you're correct. It's Santa's bringing the hot items one time a year versus Hasbro, like other toy bar, like all of that stuff. Those are coming out throughout. Like Wicked just launched, and so there's a whole product line that was coming out with that. So they've got all these different products. Okay, raw materials. So you're at the North Pole. You got to get the raw materials there, and so it's going to be the toys. It's going to be the hot items. Of course, it's got to be challenging because I'm picturing head elf over here. He's mapped out the whole year what the toys are going to be, and then all of a sudden a new trend pops up, and it's like, oh, we got to get this done.
Yeah. One of the more interesting things that I do recall from Polar Express is probably the only thing that I really recall, other than Tom Hanks as the train guy, the giant storage room. Because not a whole lot of movies that deal with Santa Claus deal with the logistics of his overall, capacity. And they in Polar Express, they show that giant room where it's just filled with all of the stuff that they've been making, because they make so much stuff, but they have to store it until Christmas Eve. It
so
doesn't
you're saying
go
he
out
has the ultimate
Christmas
gift closet?
I mean, he has got one heck of a storage facility, but if you consider the fact that not only does he have to store the product after it's made, he's also, unless they're doing some serious material management, he's also got to have storage capacity for the raw materials. So where is all of it? I think they do it underground.
It's actually in Memphis. He uses Memphis for our logistics and warehouse.
There you go.
Are we the
There
hub? Because it's like you got to have the perfect candy apple red paint, and you've got to have like all the different elements of it.
Imagine the gallons and gallons, just hundreds and thousands, maybe even millions of gallons of just candy apple red that he goes through.
So much.
It's crazy.
So if he produces 500 million toys annually at an average cost of $20 per toy, that's $10 billion in materials and production costs.
Yeah.
Wow. And then in addition, it's one of those, you've got to have all the supplies, all the materials for it. You've got to have stuff on work, your machines, your conveyor belts, your things like that to really keep the system going. Because every Santa movie I've seen, the elves have a system. Like this elf is working on putting the lipstick on. This one's putting the hair on. This one's like they're covering all the different elements.
I will point out that if his cost is $10 billion, if he were in any sort of retail business, let's say his margin was even something as slim as like 10%, that you got to figure that he's doing $11 billion in total business, and that would not make him a small toy company. Sorry, I'm stuck on that. Because you said Hasbro last year did $5 billion.
Yeah, and I mathed it up. So $5 billion, and if I'm guessing each of their product is around 25, give or take, it's 200 million toys that they have sold.
Wow.
And I was also stuck on this. There's all these raw materials in the storage and everything. Who's paying Santa? Where's he getting this money?
Magic.
United Nations are like giving him a stipend.
I'm fairly certain that he may also have up in the North Pole found a massive vein of gold. Like, there's a gold mine up there somewhere.
Yeah, somebody's funding his operations.
Yeah, they never show the elves that are actually down in the mine working, because that's a less pleasant job than toy making. But they're down there. They're working that mine.
So actually, the 7 dwarfs are showing up with the gold, with the gems, things like that. Yeah. They're actually helping funding the operation. Oh, yeah, we've just solved it, y'all.
We solved
Figured it out.
There
Fantastic.
we go. Okay, so infrastructure costs. We've talked about how if we were to pay these workers, we're looking at $1.9 billion. Well, we just said that the toys are about $10 billion in materials. So we're getting up crazy in this number. So, okay, we have got to have energy. We've got to have heat. We've got to have power. We've got to have running water. We've got to have all these different options to keep the storage unit from getting snow capsized. We've got to keep the elves comfortable and taken care of and nobody's sick. You've got to have an infirmary up in the North Pole. So if the North Pole relied on renewable energy sources like wind or solar, then the setup cost could exceed $10 million, with yearly maintenance costs around $500,000. Now, obviously, we know, like from a lot of the different movies, that the North Pole is in a secret bubble. So it kind of made me think a little bit like WandaVision, like she's got her bubble of protection.
Sure.
So that was by magic. So North Pole's got magic. So maybe it's not that there's a certain source at the top of their bubble over North Pole that is really the energy source.
Well, I think they probably have. I mean, it's going to be an unpopular opinion, and I'll own that. But I think that North Pole, especially as depicted in most of the movies I've seen, it's always very windy up there. So I think wind turbines is going to be the way to go in terms of renewable energy. And so he's probably got just fields and fields of wind turbines out there that are all wired back to the North Pole.
So again, he's got to have a set of elves that are in charge of maintaining those.
Maintaining the wind turbines. It's just not the sexy job that Toy Maker is.
No.
So you don't hear about the wind turbine maintenance guys. But I will tell you this. Those guys have some serious chutzpah. They have nerves of steel is what they have. Because you realize how they have to maintain those things? They've got to climb all the way up to the top of that wind turbine. And that is not something that I want to be doing. That is scary. I'm afraid of heights. So
you're saying you're management in the toy shop.
100%.
You're the bad guy that's in there like, come on, go
We already said that I'm angry elf.
You're angry elf.
What do you think made me so angry? It's having to manage all this stuff.
Cam's going to be creativity. He's going to be making sure that they're reinventing and, having unique items, things like that.
And that the correct color of red is being used.
Oh, yeah. He will be, a stickler on that, making sure you're using the correct. And if he sees anything that is not the correct shade, he will lose it. He will be throwing candy canes everywhere.
Well, what do you do?
I don't know. What would I do?
Keep people in line. That's what you do.
I was going to say, yeah, I'd probably be some kind of management too as well, keeping everybody in line. But I'd also
Finance
be
is your CFO.
Yeah.
CFO. I'll just be CFO.
You're helping us with our finances.
There we go. Okay.
Doing Santa's financial planners.
Yes. Yes, I will be that elf. Like, I think it was in the Santa Clauses where it's like, we cannot be doing this. We're running out of production. Santa, you need to be resting. We don't have enough energy. I'd be the worry wart. Like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
And you just be like, we'll just get it done. And Cam's like, that is not the correct shade of red. Court
Cerulean blue.
Court, be on brand. Your red face is not the official North Pole color red.
You make me sound so sassy.
Well, you are a little sassy. You're sassy. Okay. Manufacturing and toy production. Scale of operation. Santa has to compete with giants like Mattel and Hasbro. We've already talked about Hasbro. We didn't talk about Mattel. Making enough toys for 865 million kids annually is 10 times Lego's output. Oh my goodness. I didn't even think about Legos. They're going to have a whole room just dedicated to all the Lego pieces.
Yeah, 100%. They probably have some sort of, I would imagine that they probably have some sort of agreement with Lego.
I was going to say, do you think they contract out with with some of them.
They're probably buying a whole lot of this stuff in bulk, wholesale, at just ridiculously low prices because, I mean...
They would have to. That you'd have to have your vendors lined up. You've got to have a partnership with the big competitors because nobody on Christmas wants to get the knockoff version of Barbie.
Right.
Like, they want to get Barbie.
Yeah.
So, now if you're making a, baby doll, it could be the Santa version, but you've got to partner out with these different people.
I want this Lord of the Rings Lego set of Rivendell. It's beautiful.
Have you noticed that Legos...
Gorgeous.
And maybe I'm just now picking up on this, but Legos has really become a big adult thing.
It has, yeah.
Like it is. I have a neighbor who, well, he's moved to Atlanta now, but he had a whole Lego room. And I mean, he corrected me. He's like, it's Lego, not Legos. Because a lot of people say Legos and it's not. It's Lego.
Basically,
There
their
is no
fancy
plural.
ones. Their fancy ones are in black boxes, like the
Yeah.
Rivendell one I was talking about. But they've
And
got
they're
like Hogwarts.
They're intense because I remember my brother and mom worked some of the big Star Wars ships and stuff, and that was a big deal. But now, like, those fancy ones are everywhere, and everybody's building them. And it's like, okay, move over. Lego is for adults, not kids. Okay, technology and innovation. The toy industry averages 3 to 5% of revenue. If Santa invests similarly, then 300 to 500 million annually is developing new toys.
Yeah, so R&D, research and development, we talked about this a little bit in terms of them developing new toy lines. I don't know how much, I think I always kind of feel like Santa sticks to the classics to a certain degree.
He doesn't try and do the trendy stuff.
Yeah.
He tries to do the toys that you're not going to get sick of after 3 months.
Right, yeah,
They're going to
exactly.
have the tried and true. And it's more of, the iconic, the classic, like the wooden dollhouse, like the wooden train set, things like that.
Yeah.
The logistics and delivery. So we have now talked about how we're going to build this stuff. We talked about how we're going to store it. Talked about maybe there's some contracts and some vendors because as any business knows, it's best to see if you can contract out instead of trying to do it all yourself because that's where you get in trouble. And you can obviously have some secret deals, all of that. We know Santa's got something going on with how he's funding all this. Court, talk to us about the logistics and the delivery.
The whole idea
We've lost Cam to the Lego world.
Sorry.
The whole idea of Santa delivering everything in the sleigh, you have to accept, there's simply no possible way. He can't be making runs back to the North Pole to restock. That would just absolutely slow him down. So you've got to accept a degree of magic goes into his ability to carry all of these toys to all of these children. And usually there's some kind of depiction that like the bag looks almost empty, but when he reaches in...
It's like a Mary Poppins bag.
he pulls out. So it's a never-ending bag. Maybe the bag just has a magic portal back to his storage room.
That's what I've wondered, if there's like a group of elves that are in there and he's like, oh, do I have something for Cameron?
Yeah, reaches in and they're like, Cameron, wait. And so they type you up and the arm brings the toy over and right into Santa's hand and then he pulls it back out of the bag and he looks like this master magician, but really all he did was just say your name loud enough that the elves could hear it.
This is like you with the fish.
I don't know what that
What
means.
fish?
At MOSD.
Oh, yeah. The carnival game where they throw their line over the curtain and I'm back there. And I know what gender they are
Yeah, 'cause
because
it's like, oh, you're a cute little girl or little boy.
and I hook a little doll to the fishing line and throw it back over.
So you're Santa.
So accepting that
am.
the sleigh itself also runs on magic, or at least is pulled by reindeer who run on magic, and therefore
It
that
has
is...
the hot cocoa button, at
Yeah.
least in Santa Claus.
At least in the Santa Claus it does, yeah. But still, you've got to care for the reindeer. So
Yeah.
even that is an expense, right? We took into consideration the fact that feeding for them and just generally caring for them probably about the same as... Because I think these are oversized reindeer, maybe slightly. They can
Hefty,
fly, so
yeah.
they're probably going through a little
Yeah.
bit more energy than your average standard reindeer. So you got to keep them fed. So let's say that they're comparable to a large horse. You're looking at a cost of, $60,000 annually. That's surely not for all 9 of them. That's probably for per reindeer, $60,000 annually.
And Rudolph would be a little bit more. He's
Yeah, well,
novel.
he's got the he's
got
got
the
the
nose.
nose. So there's also
So he needs more because of his nose?
yeah.
Well, a little more energy is pumping through. There's more voltage,
Well,
right?
and
Yeah.
the thing is, you have to have the backup reindeer because if like in the one movie where was it Blitzen that got indulged with all the chocolate and stuff and then gained a
I
bunch
think
of
it was Comet.
or Comet? Okay,
Yeah.
Comet gained a bunch of weight and could not fly anymore.
So they actually I can't remember if his name was Fred or what.
it was like a backup one.
yeah, Jeff.
Jeff
Jeff the reindeer.
It was not ready, and it's like
No, he was a goof. He was absolutely a goof. So you consider the fact that not only do you have probably some backup reindeer, so let's say you've got a squad of 8 tiny reindeer plus Rudolph plus maybe half again as many reindeer as backup. So you're dealing with a total of like 13 reindeer. They've got to have stables where they stay for the rest of the year. And those stables require workers to maintain the stable, maintain the stalls. Again, we talk about how sexy a job the elves that get to make the toys is. You kind of have to wonder if like you have to work your way up to that by working, mucking out the reindeer stalls first or something like that.
Yeah.
These less
desirable jobs.
I was going to use term that unskilled labor.
Oh,
the more unskilled labor jobs.
But still incredibly important.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. We didn't talk about the elves that are running the list.
It occurred to me that you've also got to have a veterinarian elf.
Oh, yeah.
You do.
And vet school, man, that is an undertaking. So
you've got to have a whole infirmary for the elves themselves.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got to have doctors too, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, all of this.
Chefs to, like, everybody's got to eat. Mm-hmm. Housekeeping. Come on.
Housekeeping.
You got to have somebody who's going to.
You want mint for pillow?
Not that. You got to have somebody who's cleaning the toilet.
Indeed.
Somebody's got to do that. Okay, so global delivery. Mm-hmm. Amazon delivers 8 billion packages in 2022, spending $83 billion on logistics. Mm-hmm. So Santa's scale delivers 865 million packages in one night at $10 per package, totals $8.65 billion in logistics costs. Where's he getting $10 per package? I haven't seen those prices. But, Santa also must consider bad weather, time zone customs, exchange rate, if we're talking about money here.
No, I don't think that Santa has to deal with customs. I'm pretty sure he can also avoid any tariffs that might be put in place.
He just flies above the radar.
He just flies. I think it would be more likely that he's just coming in low under the radar and flying around any checkpoints that he needs to avoid to make sure that he doesn't have to pay those things. But still, the rest is very...
So are you saying we don't have to declare our Santa gifts? So, obviously the logistics of it, just kind of joking. Obviously, if a Santa was to be a real entity, then there's a lot of logistics of shipping, a lot of big logistic companies, how these presents are going to get to these people, because Santa always gets it done in one night. Mm-hmm. But you've got train, you've got vehicle, air, and we kind of saw...
You were trying real hard there not to say planes, trains, and automobiles, weren't you?
We're not in that season. We put that last in November. That was past month. But no, it's the different logistics, and obviously Santa's not going to have to worry about, the hurricane that happened that caused logistics to really get halted in this region. That's because true. I-40, which is a main interstate, is now broken in that chain. And so you have to kind of bounce around. And so that's causing a huge travel issue from North Carolina area all the way across the country.
I-40 was a major corridor because it's the interstate that goes all the way across the country from North Carolina all the way out to California. And if even a bit of that line is broken, I don't remember exactly what the news people said, but I saw a news story about how far out of their way people were having to go to get from North Carolina side of I-40 over to Tennessee side of I-40 right now. And it's a pretty extended delay that they have to go through to get across. So
Santa's not having to deal with any of that traffic. Yeah. He's got planes that he's dealing with, but he's kind of dodging that. So as long as we don't turn into the Jetsons and start having those flying cars, I think we're out of the realm of Santa's range. And he can, like we talked about before, there's probably time warps, there's loops that he's bouncing through where he's able to be in Tennessee and then over in Germany and bouncing between it. You've got to have all these people, because obviously if we have the magic trick of, hey, reach in the bag, I've got a gift for Cameron, you've got to make sure you have those elves that have that list of what Cameron wanted.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're maintaining that list, who's on the naughty list, who's on the nice list. And I've always wondered, when does Santa lock that list in? Because like you've seen some movies where it's like, oh, you're still on the naughty list.
If you are to believe the song, he makes the list and he checks it twice. Yeah. So, and I'm betting he isn't by himself in making that list. I bet you he's got some elf helpers that are just strictly about data input, because how's he making that list with that many kids all by himself? I don't think it's entirely Santa, but still, it's going to be time consuming. And he's at least having to oversee that, make sure the data is being input on a regular and timely basis, that it's organized properly, that it's going to spit out the list in a reviewable manner so that he can.
So he's got to put some money into technology to make sure he's got the best of the best, then make sure it's getting that information. But then my question would be like, hey, if I'm on the naughty list, then, what's my cutoff that I can change my naughty to nice?
I mean,
I guess the moral of that is just be on the nice list always.
Yeah.
Don't put yourself in jeopardy. Like December 1 hits, do not jeopardize it. Okay, so free gifting. The holiday retail market in the U.S. alone exceeds $1.3 trillion annually. So Santa's goodwill directly inspires gift giving, creating cultural and economic ripples.
You feel the power of Santa. I feel the power of Santa.
I feel his ripples.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where we've talked about before on some other episodes about budgeting this time of year is really hard because you're going to get hit a lot with angel tree, Santa outside a store ringing the bell for the Salvation Army.
I haven't seen a Santa outside ringing a bell in a while. I just see people standing outside like with a vest or an apron on.
You didn't tell him?
Ringing a bell.
You didn't tell him?
We're going to be ringing the bell.
And you have to dress up as Santa.
I won't be ringing a bell, and I won't be dressing up.
I'm looking forward to ringing the bell.
I think it'll be fun. Yeah. Well, we're ringing the bell for Rotary.
Oh, nice.
And so I think we're going to make Court dress up.
Yeah,
as
I'm not
an
part
angry
of
elf.
Rotary.
You're still dressing up, baby.
Hey, you're still dressing up. So this one was kind of a fun one, just kind of talking about the economic engine that is Santa Claus, and if he truly was a business, all the ins and outs that you would have to consider to run his operation. So that may be a not fun answer, but when your kids are like, why did Santa only bring me this? It's like, well, Santa's got a big operation he's running, and
let's not be greedy.
Let's not be greedy. Like he has to take care of all these other kids.
Yeah.
He's got to make sure maybe his budget was a little tight this year. Like there's different things you can talk about because Santa is a business.
Yep.
So Santa focuses on innovation, sustainability, and brand loyalty rivals the world's biggest corporations. So believe in the magic of Christmas.
Oh, ho, ho. There's the closing jingle bells.
What ho was that?
Ladies and gentlemen, you've made it to the end of yet another episode of the BullCast podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cortland, Katie, Cameron, or Nicole, please feel free to go to our website. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. You can check out our bios, and we also have some pictures. And then you also have a place where you can drop a comment or suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk more about. But hey, I mentioned pictures. We do have pictures because we do have an Instagram account, and that handle is at BullCast Podcast. And we also have an X handle, which is at BullCast Podcast. We have a Facebook page, which is BullCast the Podcast. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, Cameron, Katie, and I mention on a regular basis that we all work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. If you'd like to find out more about what we do, find out about what we can do for you, find out about our amazing team, and find out about our boss, David Pickler, please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Okay, I think we have given you enough to be going on with. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
I'm Cam.
And we're done.